everybody. We're going to talk to you today about some simple steps you can take to repel gnats.
After yesterday's 4-hour meeting and 8 years in power, the Nats still haven't agreed to support the Liberals' late push for net zero by 2050.
That's this beautiful thing called democracy.
With just 2 weeks until the Glasgow summit, the PM wants unity on the policy, but the junior partner is playing hardball.
We have divergent views and we have different views, and that is our right. We're absolutely, we're fervent about the exercise of that right.
Barnaby Joyce is the biggest bullshit artist in a government that is chock full of them.
And that collegial rhetoric signalled Parliament was back, baby.
Sometimes the gnats will be so bad they'll run you back in the house.
Why is it always too little too late from this Prime Minister?
Will you squander this once-in-a-generation opportunity for us?
This government is frozen in time while the world warms around it.
The business community is now agitating for climate action, with new data showing more than 70% of corporate Australia in favour of net zero. 67% of voters want more action from the government. In regional New South Wales, aka Barnaby's backyard, that number is 63%.
We will do what's right for regional people.
The government's commitments for Australia in relation to COP26 will be made by the government in Cabinet. That's where these decisions are made. All members of the government understand that.
So with the Nats digging their heels in and the clock fast running down, just how far are the Nats willing to go?
Remember all these ideas when you're trying to deal with the gnat issues, and make sure to join us for more next time.
Well, David Littleproud is the Deputy Leader of the Nats and he joins us now. What's the delay, David?
Oh, we're simply working through this in a pragmatic sense. We only saw the plan about 24 hours ago. We've had 4 hours to work through it as a collective group, and we had a couple more this morning, and we're going to work through this as quickly as we can. But we want to get an understanding of this, make sure that when we sign up to anything, we understand what the implications and the ramifications are for regional Australia, and make sure there's protections in there for them if they're required. But we're rushing this as quickly as we can, but making sure that we get it right. And we're just asking for a little bit of clear air and creating an environment where we can do that as a collective group. And while there are a small number that have basically said no, I think the will of the room is that we're very pragmatic about this. We want to work through this as quickly as we can to make sure there's certainty and there's a pathway forward.
I suppose for a while we've just assumed that the problem was the coalition couldn't agree between the Libs and the Nats on exactly what this should look like. As this has gone on, it's started to look like the real problem is that the Nats can't agree amongst themselves as to whether or not they want to sign up to this. Is that right?
Look, I think you've got to understand the culture of the Nats. You'll never get full agreement of the full 21 of us. We're 21 effective independents, passionately representing regional Australia. So we'll always have a divergent views, but that's something we protect. That's this beautiful thing called democracy. And while there'll be some that won't agree in the end, and we expect that, ultimately the will of the room will come through in terms of our final position. And that's what we're constructively working through now in a pragmatic way, in understanding this problem has to be solved, but we want to make sure that the solution doesn't have detrimental impacts on regional Australia. And what we're starting to see is that this will be a technology solution that'll not only get back to the first principles of reducing emissions and protecting the existing jobs, but creating new jobs as well. And that's really where we want to make sure that we can tick off, get an appreciation. And it's very complex, and that's why we're bringing the collective room and the skills that they bring together to try and get to that solution as quickly as we can.
I'm sure the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, David, is saying, come on, guys, hurry up and sort this out. He may well go to Glasgow without any agreement from the Nats. What do you do then?
Oh, look, we've made it clear in our party room that we understand that we want to get a resolution of this as quickly as we can, but appreciate the fact that the National Party room only saw this less than 24 hours ago. And it's a very complex plan. While there are some comforting aspects to it that goes to technology, not taxes, and it's about reducing costs of electricity, that gives us comfort. It's just making sure the detail doesn't have unintended consequences. And there's some safeguards to make sure that future governments just don't do us over, that we're not the whipping boys again and they simply change legislation or change rules that mean that we bear all the costs. And I think we're pragmatically trying to work through that as best we can. We understand that this is a global problem that we have to be part of in terms of solutions, and that's why we're saying we want to be part of the solution. Regional Australia can be part of the solution, but you have to make sure you can articulate that. We are the last line of defence in making sure that they are protected, and we've had bad experience in the past, but we're pragmatic enough to know that we've got to be at the table and we've got to try and find a solution.
You have been in government for 8 years, and you know the European Union, for example, signed up to net zero by 2050 as early as 2018. They weren't the only ones. There are quite a few nations doing it. Like, it's not as though this is only something you could have turned your mind to in the past couple of weeks. Shouldn't you have had these ideas by now rather than being passive recipients waiting for the government or the coalition to come along and convince you of its map?
Well, we have. And let me tell you, we've reduced emissions by 20% since 2005. We signed up to Kyoto 1 and 2, meet and beat that. And now we're going to meet and beat Paris. So we all signed up to that.
I don't want to get into carbon accounting. I'm just talking about the roadmap element.
No, I'm not getting
You're
into
saying
that.
we need to go into the details of it. I'm saying, shouldn't this have been done? Like, you've had 8 years.
Well, if you want me to answer the question, the reality was the world had been focusing on a 2030 commitment, which we made, and we're going to meet and beat. Now the world's saying we've got to go beyond that. And so the world's now focusing on 2050. So the attention of the world is getting there. But just put this into perspective. There's over 130 countries that have signed up to it. Only about 20 have got a direct plan on how they achieve it. So there's a lot of platitudes. And I don't think Australians want that. They want their government to not only look their people in the eye, but look the global community in the eye and squarely say, this is how we're going to get there. And this is who's going to pay for it. This is how we can achieve it. We've got a proud record as a nation. And we should be damn proud. We should have our chin out and our chest out because we have achieved so much in meeting those international commitments, and you only hold that currency globally if you have a direct plan that can achieve it. And so we've achieved a lot in asking what the world asked of us. And now, if we go to 2050, we want to be able to look them in the eye and say, this is how we do it. And that's a responsible thing. The Australian people just want honesty. And that's what we're going to give them. We're not going to blindly sign up to some platitude. That's what the opposition's done. We're going to say, this is how we get there, and who pays, and what does that roadmap look like so that you have confidence that the Australian people knows that we're doing our fair share.
Well, David, we look forward to seeing what you guys agree on. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.